Welcome back to the Socialist Star YouTube channel, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about something that at this point is so odd to say, but it's not even enough to stop what is happening in Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon. It's not even enough. Considering how the world is working, I already know that this is not enough, and how it's not enough is something that I think future generations will have to come to reckon and understand, and it's not going to look good on us, especially our world leaders. So let's get into it.
An attack 2 weeks ago on 15 rescue workers in Gaza by Israeli soldiers provoked international outrage. Now mobile phone footage has emerged that has forced Israel to change its account of the circumstances under which its soldiers opened fire. The rescue workers were travelling in a convoy which Israel's military had said approached suspiciously and without lights. But the footage shows the convoy did have headlights on and emergency lights flashing. Tonight, Israel has admitted the soldiers were mistaken about the lights and the threat they were under. You may find footage of the video in Dan Johnson's report, Distressing.
This video challenges Israel's account of why its soldiers opened fire with such deadly force. It's just before dawn, and the Red Crescent paramedics and civil defense workers are answering a call to help the wounded near Rafah. Israel's military first said this convoy advanced suspiciously towards troops with the lights switched off. But you can see, these are marked vehicles and they're wearing reflective uniforms. Then, without warning, this. The shooting continues for more than 5 minutes. The paramedic who's filming says his last prayers. Refat Redwan was one of 15 killed.
His phone was found with his body, and he recorded the whole event. His last words before being shot: "Forgive me, Mom. I just wanted to help people. I wanted to save lives."
The footage only emerged when teams could safely reach this site 7 days later. The bodies were buried along with the vehicles. Regular practice, the army says, to protect them from animals. The UN called this a mass grave. Israel's account was already in question. The only paramedic to live through the shooting told us earlier this week they had their lights on and it was clear they were medics.
I am the only survivor who saw what happened to my colleagues, and I will expose the crimes committed by the occupation against them.
On Tuesday, Israel's response was in defense of its forces.
The IDF did not randomly attack an ambulance. On last Sunday, several uncoordinated vehicles were identified advancing suspiciously toward IDF troops without headlights.
Now, that narrative's been upended. Tonight, a military official admitted the soldiers were mistaken about the lights and the threat they were under. The army insists 6 of the dead belonged to Hamas, but it denies they were executed at close range. The changing story, though, is only increasing the pressure for an independent investigation. This footage lay buried for a week in the Gaza sand. Now, it is forcing Israel to give answers and adding to the calls for accountability. Dan Johnson, BBC News in Jerusalem.
So in that video you saw the absolutely horrific, absolutely soul-crushing trap laid by the IDF after different aid workers and groups were trying to go and get a group of civilians that were trapped in a crossfire with IDF forces out of the area. Had tried all throughout the day, and this group was trying at night. Basically, it looks like almost, it's clearly, the sun is a little bit off on the horizon, but it's essentially night. They were going in paramedic vehicles with lights on, and even if the lights weren't on, it's still clear that they were paramedic vehicles. Still clear that the people on board were paramedics. I think one of the vehicles was a fire truck. It's a hard thing to see. I'm glad, oddly enough, that this is my reaction to it, that I'm stunned, that my very core is shaken, because at least it means that unlike the soldiers who opened fire on paramedics, I have a fucking heart. I have a little bit of humanity. But to the soldiers who took these shots, I wouldn't call it a heart, I wouldn't call it humanity, I'd call it absolute fucking demonic activity. And I've watched the full video. They go around, you can hear it as the paramedic is laying on the ground, I'm assuming dying but not dead yet, and they go around and they straight up execute anyone still alive. They, unfortunately for them, fortunately for the rest of the world, missed one. And then they proceed to bury them in their trucks. They proceed to bury them in their trucks in a mass grave. I've gone to Holocaust museums. I've studied the Holocaust. I've studied the Armenian genocide. I've studied the Holodomors. I've studied the Ukrainian famine. I've studied genocides that were the result of the arrival of the Roman Empire. Genocides that were a result of each and every crusade. I'll put it like this. I see this and I genuinely question why the dinosaurs had to be the unlucky ones and we got to be lucky. I think the world would be much better off if fucking T-Rexes were still around taking shits and we weren't. But what makes it even worse is this changes nothing. Nothing. It changes absolutely nothing. There are still going to be out there rabid Zionists. There's still going to be Zionist celebrities that prop up the regime that everyone just fucking dislikes, and they disliked before and we knew we had reason to dislike them, but clearly this just confirms our fucking dislike. Michael Rappaport or whatever, or Amy Schumer. And it's going to make us dislike our world leaders, because all of them are going to excuse this. All of them are going to say, we condemn this, but because they're fighting terrorists, it's kind of an all gloves off thing. Where's the terrorists that they claim were there? God only knows. They did claim one was a terrorist, but could not show his body or any identification. Now, if you know anything about the IDF, the moment they get something that is verifiably true for their lies, they speak up. They show all the evidence in the world. You couldn't escape video recovered or taken during October 7th for like straight up 4 months after October 7th as an attempt of justification for what was happening the day after October fucking 7th. So let's look at this article by Reuters. The Israeli military has provided new details that changed its initial account of the killing of 15 emergency workers near the southern Gaza city of Rafah last month, but said investigators were still examining the evidence. Which, if you don't know what Rafah is, this is the city that everyone was told to go to stay safe from the war early on by the Israeli Defense Force, and now it's just a fucking slaughtering field. The 15 paramedics and emergency responders were shot dead on March 23rd and buried in a shallow grave where their bodies were found a week later by officials from the United Nations and the Palestinian Red Crescent. Another man is still missing. The military initially said soldiers had opened fire on the vehicles that approached their position suspiciously in the dark without lights or markings. Anything Israel says at this point, I will never ever fucking believe it. I was at that way before, but I think I'm trying to kind of tell you, anything they say, if you even so much as have a 10% belief that there's a possibility it's true, it's not. It never was. It was always a fucking fabrication of fucking idiocracy and nut fucking behavior. It said they killed 9 militants from Hamas and the Islamic Jihad who were traveling in Palestinian Red Crescent vehicles, which fucking everything is Hamas to Israel. Did you paint your wall? Hamas is now in the paint. Are you feeding your baby fucking milk from a bottle? Be careful, Hamas is in the bottle. When you wipe your ass and look at the toilet tissue to see if there's still shit on it and if you need to take another wipe, if there's still shit, Hamas is in the shit, according to fucking Israel. Did you burp? Hamas is likely in your fucking interjection system. You need to fucking get the IDF inside your fucking throat. Like, this is stupid. But video recovered from the mobile phone of one of the dead men and published by the Palestinian Red Crescent showed emergency workers in their uniforms and clearly marked ambulances and fire trucks with their lights on, being fired on by soldiers. The only known survivor of the incident, paramedic Munther Abed, also said he had seen soldiers opening fire on clearly marked emergency response vehicles. An Israeli military official said late on Saturday the investigators were examining the video and conclusions were expected to be presented to Army commanders on Sunday. He said the initial report received from the field did not describe lights, but said investigators were looking at operational information and were trying to understand if this was due to an error by the person making the initial report. What we understand currently is the person who gives the initial account is mistaken. We're trying to understand why. That's all they're gonna do. They're never gonna fucking investigate this motherfucker. They're never gonna fucking hang him for the fucking war crime he committed. They're never going to fucking throw him in a prison and let him rot for the war crime he committed. They're not going to do anything. Israel quite literally had protests because their people were mad that the IDF was forced into launching an investigation and possibly implementing some sort of punishment for a guy who had Palestinian prisoners. They are not going to do anything to this guy, to any of these soldiers. Israeli media, briefed by the military, reported that troops had identified at least 6 of the 15 dead as members of the militant groups. Suck a fucking dick. Suck a fucking dick. However, the official declined to provide any evidence or detail on how the identifications were made, saying he did not want to share classified information. In other words, we didn't. We just said, good job, boys. You didn't kill something wearing an Israeli flag. It's all good. That's what that means. In layman's terms, in short people terms, in common people terms. According to our information, there were terrorists but this investigation is not over, he told reporters at the briefing late on Saturday. It's over. It was already over. It was over before the paramedics were dead. The UN and Palestinian Red Crescent had demanded an independent inquiry. The White House on Sunday said that President Donald Trump was holding Hamas responsible for the incident. It's not about Trump. It's not about Trump. It's not about Trump. It's about the 15 paramedics. It's not about Trump. It's not about Trump. It's about the 15 fucking paramedics. Hamas uses ambulances and more broadly human shields for terrorism, said Brian Hughes, a spokesperson for the National Security Council. Brian Hughes, I hope you have the most violent diarrhea for the rest of your life. Every fucking day. President Trump understands the impossible situation this tactic creates for Israel and holds Hamas entirely responsible. Now let me break down that fucking sentence for you, okay? For you, right here. This whole sentence. President Trump understands the impossible situation this tactic creates. Impossible situation. IDF has a more or less blanket protocol that if something is not Israeli, you must kill it. That is the impossible situation. Impossible because it's fucking genocidal. The tactic was have fucking aid vehicles off on the side of the road, knowing that other aid vehicles will pass, knowing that aid workers will put themselves in any types of harm's way to ensure that if someone needs help, they get it, so they know they're going to pull over and check this vehicle, allowing them to then execute a genocidal act against the people who pull over to help someone if they need it. This tactic creates for Israel and holds Hamas entirely responsible. At this point, I think it is safe to say Hamas is fucking kaputa, right? I think at this point, it's safe to say Hamas couldn't fucking probably blow up the side of a goddamn barn with the amount of destruction Gaza has fucking endured. And yet somehow, as I said earlier, Hamas is fucking everywhere. Hamas is in your fucking grass. Hamas is in the sand. Hamas is in the rubber for the fucking tires. Hamas is in the bullet that an Israeli soldier fires at someone like, I don't know, a 5-year-old child walking to go get fucking food supplies. Hamas is in that bullet. Hamas is in the air. Hamas is in the fucking molecules within your goddamn body. Hamas is on the fucking surface of the moon. They got a moon base up there called the Hamas fucking international terrorist base of superseding destruction, committed to the all-out philosophy of the destruction of Israel. Hamas is fucking everywhere, according to Israel, and therefore also according to America. Red Crescent UN officials have said 17 paramedics, emergency workers from the Red Crescent Civil Emergency Services and UN have been dispatched to respond to reports of injuries from Israeli airstrikes, apart from the paramedic Abed, who was detained for several hours before being released. Another worker is still missing. The UN said last week that available information indicated one team was killed by Israeli forces and other emergency and aid crews were killed, one after another, over several hours as they searched for their missing colleagues. In other words, they literally did the whole thing of, well, like if you think about Serbia and this and that, when Diana went to Balkans to, tour the landmine fields and all this stuff, and the genocide of that conflict. And there was clear evidence that, like, soldiers would put booby traps next to, like, food supplies, landmines around supposed safe areas. And because children are children that would be starving or this and that, or starving adults, whatever, would go to get these supplies or play in these areas that they were known to play in, they would step on these mines and they would die. And it would inflict a terror upon a populace who was not involved in the conflict, right? If it's a war, it's between those who are dressed as soldiers. That is the rules. If you are caught as a spy, the rule is, unfortunately for you, you have subverted the respected rules that are attempt to control war, and you are to be executed. Israel was doing basically that tactic. First team comes, they fire at them, kill a couple, position one of their vehicles likely to draw in the next team. Next team comes, repeat the process over and over all throughout the day. Not once do you shoot at fucking Hamas. You shoot at rescue workers. Over and over, over and over, over and over. And then you hide it by just fucking digging a quick mass grave. And you even throw the vehicles in there for fucking good measure. At this point, I'm going to say it right now. Even though it's not going to make a difference on the world stage, per se, if you support Israel, until you no longer support Israel, if I know you, don't fucking talk to me. I mean it. If you support Israel, under no circumstances are you allowed to open your goddamn mouth to me. And under no circumstances are you allowed to fucking give commentary, thought, or fucking consideration of possibility to Israel and just be allowed to fucking get away with it. I hope that the death of these 15 people forces some major response, but unfortunately the saddest part is, because of how the world is shaped today, I am very certain that nothing will be done. I am certain that the soldiers who carried out this act will likely, if the world is lucky, catch a bullet by Hamas, or if the world is unlucky, will probably grow fucking old and live full lives. This life isn't eternal. The next one is. And I am sure Satan is cooking up one hell of a fucking torture room. I'm going to put down below some links to some charities for Gaza. Doesn't matter if you just give a penny or if you just open them. Just share them, whatever. It just anything. Because we have to, at this point, fight and hold on to our humanity every single day in a way that just shouldn't happen. But it does. And that is hard for me to swallow, I've got to admit. I hope whether you're like that or not, you stay loved, you stay safe. Protect your loved ones and your community. And I'll see you in the next video.